and hello everyone, and welcome back to my little bookish channel. I'm Allie, and I have COVID, that's why I speak like this right now. I feel like I'm gonna have to say that for a bunch of videos because I'm trying to batch film, so you're gonna see like me like this for a few videos, so I apologize. But hi, how have you been? I can't believe it's the new year already. I'm filming this from 2023, but I can already tell that 2024 is going to be an interesting year. It's going to be an interesting year. Okay, and we're doing this. I can't believe we're up to like the beginning, end of year type of content. Like seeing people put out their favourite books of 2023 and their worst books of 2023 in December gets me really excited. But also, how do you know? Like, what happens if you read a terrible book in the last week of December or an incredible book on the last day of December? I always say that to myself. Anyway, hello. Today we're talking about the worst books of 2023 because why not? I'm feeling spicy. I have my list here, and they're not a lot actually, because surprisingly I had a pretty good reading year in 2023, and I will be doing like a retrospective video in the next coming weeks, but I just have, I have to like script it and stuff, so I can't do it off the cuff like this one. But anyway, let's talk about the worst books. Now, for most of these, they're terrible. Like, they're absolutely the worst book that I read in 2023. But in some other cases, it's more like disappointing, you know? So I just wanted to put out a disclaimer that there is a difference between worst and disappointing, and also these are my opinions. I don't mean anything malicious. This is just me trying to be funny and bonding with you, you know, as a community, about some of these books that we collectively did read and collectively did hate. And I think that makes us grow stronger, bond, you know? So if you enjoyed or loved any of these books, please, this is not an attack. I am really happy that you were able to read this book and love it. I couldn't. Reading is subjective, but it also brings us together. Anyway, we're just going to start. How am I going to start this? I'm just going to go from the list. Okay, so the first book that I'm going to talk about is Dark Lover by J.R. Ward. Now, I'll link the reading wrap-up where I talk about this book. Like, I rant about this book for 20 minutes or something in that reading wrap-up. So I'll link that down below. This book is the first book in the Black Dagger Brotherhood series by J.R. Ward. It's a paranormal romance series. This was horrible. I don't know what else to say other than it was actually the worst book that I've ever read. The writing, have no idea what was happening there. The characters were atrocious, and the world building was... there was an attempt, okay, but was the attempt good? Absolutely the fuck not. It wasn't. Now, if you don't know, it's a vampire series, and so you have the Black Dagger Brotherhood, who's like an elite task force, so to speak, of the vampiric community, and their job is to basically protect the king. And just so you know, it's like a warrior class. And so the first book, which is Dark Lover in this series, the main guy character, who I don't remember, but he has a random H in his name. If you've watched that video that I've talked about previously, you'll know this series, they put the main men characters who are vampires have random H's in their name, like torment with a H, rage with a H. It makes no absolute fucking sense. And there at no point is there like an attempt to try and explain why. Like maybe it's a translation thing, you know what I mean? Because like these vampires are not, like they weren't born in America, they were born in wherever they were, Romania I think it was supposed to be. Like it's, you know what I mean? There was no attempt at explaining that. And let's not even get into like the fact that the god entity of the vampires is named like Sophie or something. First of all, what the fuck? Second of all, why? You know? Anyway, so it's about this vampire king who is tasked with looking after the daughter of one of his warriors after the warrior dies, because this woman is going to make the transition into a vampire without knowing that she's transitioning into a vampire. So what does he do? He breaks into her house and watches her sleep. Because that's fucking normal. Like, I don't understand the author's, like, mentality, you know? Like, at what point was she like, oh my god, I love it when men watch me sleep without my consent. It's so romantic. It's not romantic. It's fucking creepy. And he doesn't communicate. He's, oh my god. Anyway, so that's Dark Lover. And it is incredibly misogynistic. It is so wildly atrocious. Like the men are the very stereotypical, like, manly men, right? Like, they're super masculine, they're super toxic. Like, they don't, it's like, do you even enjoy women? Are you even attracted to them? Because, like, the way that you're talking about them, I don't think you are. And that's okay if you're not attracted to women. You know what I mean? Like, it's fucking weird. Am I going to continue reading the series though? Absolutely yes. Because I need to read it and rant about it. Because I think we all enjoyed that. I love reading books like that are just so wild that you hate read them. It's a fun experience. And I was live messaging my reaction to Hannah, and Hannah really loved it. So I'm continuing it for her. And then the next book I want to talk about is Verity by everyone's favourite Colleen Hoover. Now, I don't like Colleen Hoover. I don't enjoy the way that she writes her books. I DNF'd, what's that book? The one that everyone reads. Oh, I forgot about it. Sorry, COVID brain. I DNF'd one book and then I read Verity. Now, what I will say about Verity is that it was very easy to read. It was very easy to read. You read it so quickly. I read it within a few hours because the pace is very hard. Like, it's very fast paced. But I think what happened with me is that you read it so quickly and you're like, did I enjoy that? Or did I just read that because I had to read it? Like, I was fixated on this story. And I think that's what happened. I didn't like it. The writing was horrible. The characters, there was nothing there. They had no personality. I think there's so much hype about this book because of its gimmick. It is a very gimmicky book. And I think that's how Colleen Hoover sells, because she sells gimmicks. She doesn't sell based on the quality of her writing. She's kind of similar to Rebecca Yarros. There's nothing of quality there, but people get caught up in like the reading experience of it because it's so quick or so ridiculous. It's meant to provoke feelings. It's meant to provoke frustration or something, that people end up loving it. And for me, with Rebecca Yarros, for instance, I ate that shit up because it reminded me of being a teenager. Whereas reading Colleen Hoover makes me regret being an adult. Like, it makes me regret growing up, because like a grown fucking woman wrote that. And she was proud of it. Really? Like, honestly, Colleen Hoover has a lot to answer for in the book world. You go to QBD, you go to any sort of bookshop, and there's just rows and rows of Colleen Hoover books. She has single-handedly caused a decline in the quality of adult romance novels, okay? Anyway, Verity was not a fan. Worst book that I read this year. Then we read Pod by Laline Paul. I am not going to talk much about this book because I did an entire reading vlog series where I read the Women's Prize books, and a few of these books, or just 2 of these books, are actually from that reading series. Pod was longlisted or shortlisted. I think it was shortlisted for the Women's Prize in 2023, and it was absolutely atrocious. There are not few books, there are a few books that I don't understand how they got published, and Pod is one of them. I don't know how you can enjoy Pod. It's a gimmick, and the gimmick of it is what people make out as though it's deeper than it actually is. It's not. It's about the sexual trauma of dolphins, and it is horrid. It is horrid. You can try and argue and be like, oh, but it's about climate change and what we as humans are, we are the monsters and blah blah. Yes, that's very true. But also, the book itself, we're talking about the book itself, the story itself, is trash. It was not interesting. It had so much potential to reach into that sphere of being more of a commentary, and I think at points it does. There's a scene where one of the main dolphin characters swims through essentially an expanse of the ocean, an area that is just filled with trash, and that was one of, I think, the only really impactful scenes of that book, right? The rest you read and you're like, why am I reading about this? Why is this book longlisted and shortlisted for the Women's Prize? Oh, it's talking about women, women's position. You just transfer dolphins to humans. Then why wasn't it written about humans? I don't need to read about dolphin sexual trauma. I don't need to read about dolphins' domestic violence trauma. I don't need to read about that. Because what are you giving me, Laline Paul? Why are we here? Why are we here? And let's not even talk about the writing itself was not good. The writing was not good. The attempt at this world building was not good. It just wasn't good, and I don't understand how it was shortlisted. And it was one of the moments where I was like, do I even want to continue following the Women's Prize? Because what the fuck was that? And then continuing on to what the fuckery, right? We have Dog of the North by whoever her name is. The fact that I finished this book, the fact that I didn't DNF it, I feel is a testament to how strong I am as a person. This book was also trash. For me, it was just really boring. And it might be because maybe I'm not at that age or that stage of my life where I connect with this type of story. You'd think I would though, because we're basically the same age. But this book was boring. And whoever called it funny or comedic, who were they watching? Matt Rife? What the fuck did they think was funny? I don't understand. Because this was not funny. It was boring. It tried so hard to be funny, but guess what? It wasn't. It wasn't. It was cringy. It was written as though the author has never laughed a day in their life. It was random. There was kind of there was a character as well. I don't remember the name of this character. I'm like, is that supposed to be a romance lead? Because there's no tension, there's nothing sexual or romantic. Like, this book was just a book written, and I don't know how people can read this book and enjoy it. Because what was there to enjoy? I think the only one that I liked was the grandmother, and that's literally it. But the rest? No. No. This book needed, like, the editor needed to read it and then hand it back to the author and say, I like what you're trying to do, but you need to do it better. Let's maybe brainstorm some ideas. There were so many things happening at once. It was not only about taking care of the woman's grandmother, but it's also about dealing with the fact that, you know, your mother disappeared or your parents disappeared, and you know, dealing with the grief of never knowing what happened to them. And it was just this random van. And then you have, it was just a lot, like, so many things were happening that I think the author got confused, because I definitely was reading this book and going, okay, and what's the point? Because I don't understand the point. And I think a lot of us didn't like this book, actually. People who were reading through the Women's Prize long list, a lot of us didn't like Dog of the North, and a lot of us didn't like Pod. So it makes me feel good that it wasn't just a me thing. And then, this is just a random one. I read, it's not really the worst book, it was more just a disappointment. It's Seven Little Australians, and this is an Australian classic. Or it's a classic that is set in Australia. The author moved from Britain to Australia back in the old days. This was fine. My issue with this is that it is aimed at children, and the way that the portrayal of one of the girl characters was really fucked. Like, I didn't like the way that storyline occurred, but I read this with Evie, I'll link her channel down below, and she didn't interpret it the same way as me, so I think I was just reading too much into it. But I won't lie and say that that was one of the biggest factors in why I didn't really necessarily love this book, and I consider it a slight disappointment because I was really excited to read it. It's about 7 children. Their mother dies and the husband is like, oh fuck, I need to actually take care of my kids. Who would have thunk? And instead of doing that, he marries another woman, and because God forbid a man takes care of his own children. So that happens, and you have these children who are growing up with their own little personalities, but then you have one of the eldest girls who, you know, isn't really going up like a lady should. You know, she is essentially like just living her life, but she's incredibly intelligent. She loves to play with her brothers, and she talks back. And so she gets sent to a school to help her become a lady, but she eventually runs away, and she eventually dies because of that. And the way that it's written, it's because of her own actions. Her actions have consequences. If she was just a good girl, she wouldn't have died, essentially, as a result of her actions. And I didn't really like that. I thought it was trying to push this idea that children, all they need to do is obey, and the father was horrible. Like, he was a dick. He trigger warnings for like child abuse as a discipline. Like, it's definitely written as a period of it, like it's as part of its time, like you have to read it in context. But it was just a disappointment. It really was a disappointment. And another one that was a disappointment was If Tomorrow Doesn't Come by Jen St. Jude. Now, I read this as an arc, and I'll have my blog post for that linked down below. I was really excited about this actually when I got it. It is a dystopian YA and it's queer, but the main character is boring. The way that it's written, it's structured as like every day is a different chapter, but then because you need more information than just like what's happening in the fortnight that the book takes place or whatever, you have like chapters where it goes back in time so you can understand certain things about certain characters. And I just didn't think that the format and structure of the book did itself a service. I think it did a disservice. This again needed to go back to the planning stage and reconsidered, because you don't necessarily get close with the characters. You don't actually know much about the characters because of the way it's written. The main character is so boring and so dull, and it really annoyed me because in the beginning I was really enjoying it and I thought the portrayal of anxiety and like depression was done so well, and then I continued reading and I'm just like, I'm not liking this at all. It is not very well written. The characters are not very well written and I don't understand what's going on. So the entire thing is that there's like a meteor coming, right? A meteor is coming and it's going to hit the west coast of the United States. So it's an apocalyptic event. The end of the world is nigh. But the end of the world is nigh. But an entire plot point of the story is, oh, but we live on the east coast, so we can survive. What? So it's an apocalyptic event for only those on the west coast, because on the east coast you can survive. Well, if that's the case, then why isn't it an apocalyptic event? Is it just an apocalyptic event for the people who live in the US? Do people in the UK care about this? People in Australia? Are we going to be affected? Like, there needed to be a bit more believability, because the way that it was like talking about this meteor strike, they were likening it to a nuclear bomb. So they were saying that the further out we are, better our chance of survival. But like obviously where it's hit, there's going to be a lot of like weather shit happening, might be some tsunamis, like shit might happen, but we can survive, because they were making it so much like it was going to be very similar to a nuclear bomb strike, that I'm like, if that's the case, then how is this an apocalyptic event for everyone else in the world? Like, yes, there's going to be consequences, obviously. When a meteor strikes, there's going to be shit happening with the weather, with the animals, with people, blah, blah, blah. But if you're saying that you are going to survive because you're on the east coast and you're most likely going to be out of the radius of the strike, then why the fuck should I care? Like, how is this an apocalyptic event? It's not, because they were talking about it as though it's just one meteor that's just going to hit the west coast, going to fuck shit up, but that's it. People were still flying back to their families and stuff in like different countries. So it's like, why is the character that's just gone back to Africa, why is she worried about it then? She shouldn't be. Because the way you're talking about it, I wouldn't be worried about it if I live in Australia. Like, I feel like the risk of it needed to be a bit more heightened, and the author needed to maybe sit down and just think about this apocalyptic event and be like, okay, how is this going to be an apocalyptic event? Make it multiple fucking meteors and not just one. Like, actually make it apocalyptic. Like, I didn't understand, and I had to reread pages over and over because I thought I was fucking dumb. And I was like, why? But it wasn't just me. I read reviews after I published my review. I read a few reviews who said similar things, that there just needed to be a bit more conveying of an actual apocalyptic situation. I feel like they needed to be a bit more clearer. And that's why I say it's not the worst book. It's a disappointment, similar to Seven Little Australians. These ones are disappointments. But that's basically it. I could have gone through my 3-star books and talked about my disappointing 3 stars, but I won't unless you want me to. Let me know and I can do a separate video where I just talk about the books that I still gave like 3 or 4 stars, but they weren't what I expected, or they weren't as satisfying as I anticipated. Let me know if you want that. But that is it. That is the worst books that I read in 2023, and I hope you enjoy. Again, I feel like I need to say this, okay? My spicy opinions does not mean that you couldn't have loved these books. I'm just exaggerating my opinions a little bit for the sake of this video, okay? Please don't be hurt. I love you. Read whatever you want to read. I'm just here talking about books because I like to talk about books. And that is it for today, friends. I can't believe we're in 2024. Well, I'm not in 2024 right now, but you who are watching this are in 2024. How does it feel? I really hope 2024 is going to be a good year, right? I feel like it's going to be a good year, maybe. I can't believe it. Next week will be a video where I talk about my favourite books of 2023, which is going to be a doozy because I need to cut down my list. I'm going to say 10. I'm going to give myself 10 favourite books, or else I'll have like a 5-hour video. But I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you have a lovely day, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. Pray for my voice. I want my voice back. Until next time, take care and stay safe, friends, and happy reading. Okay.